Space, the final frontier. Space Station Ashland sits on the edge of Federation space with its companion ship, the USS Dilamus Christian. The space around them is full of mystery and strange wonders, where secrets are kept and danger lurks around every corner. The crew of the Dilamus Christian must navigate treacherous waters as they work to protect the Federation. But as they peer into the unknown, they will discover that the line between friend and foe is not always clear. They will be tested like never before and will face challenges that will push them to their limits. Join us on this adventure as we explore the farthest reaches of space and uncover the hidden truths that lie within the shadows. Tabletop Journeys presents Star Trek: Preservations.
We are back now. So you guys have just finished your first meeting with the governor. And Tobor, you said that you wanted to meet in the conference room, but that you wanted to discuss before Yeoman Barat came on, correct?
Yeah, just like on the walk from the holodeck to the turbo lifts up to the conference room. Yeah,
Perfect.
Anyone have anything we want to talk about before we talk with Barat? I look at Tanari.
How much of this do you think is going to be programmed in that the ROC is going to try to make us look bad?
That's an interesting question coming on the heels of us literally saving the ROC from getting blown out of space and taken over by Epsilon creatures. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, even if the new Admiral, Tovek, wanted to get rid of us, I don't think Starfleet Command would let him. Not that he's ever given me any indication. In fact, I knew it was then Captain Tovek was one of the instructors I had at the academy. Both goes through. So we've been friends and friendly for many years now. And if it's not Pritchard, I don't think Starfleet could have picked a better admiral to come out here. Because the one thing that most impresses me about Admiral Tovek is that he understands that he is a Vulcan, and he understands his people suppress their emotions and that other species don't, and he does not see that as being a superior or an inferior. It is just a fact of his existence, and he takes steps to surround himself with individuals who balance that out. And so I've never known him to not have an executive officer who isn't a high emotional quotient to balance out his intellectual side.
Well, I know for a fact the ROC is not above being petty, at which point Tanari will reach into his pocket, unfold a piece of paper, and say, after the Battle of Cassian Station, I was planning for us to send an engineering crew over to examine some of the subspace weaponry on the other ships. We were told to stand down, and then I found this in my office. He'll hand the paper to you, and the paper says, we wouldn't want to hurt your telepathic rights.
To be fair, not to defend the good captain, but you did very outwardly imply, you specifically stated that you were worried that he would commit the single gravest crime on his world by entering into your mind without your permission. I'm not entirely sure how I would feel if someone came to me and was like, I know you're going to murder me. I'm like, that's rude. So
there's also another way to look at the scenario.
There's several.
Pritchard had been keeping his cards close to the vest, I believe is the human term. Entirely possible that the new commander is trying to determine whether or not the successes that we've had have been ours or his.
That could be. Or another possible scenario is that he has concerns about other ships in the battle group, and he has to do all of us in order to make it look like he's not singling out Captain Shraz of the Sagan or another officer. And in order to make it appear fair, he's got to make everyone take the test. Is a possibility as well. Just, I'm not saying you're wrong, Mr. Tanari. I always appreciate your instincts, and it's actually disturbing how often you are right with your notions, and I've come to rely on your intuition and your antennae. So don't think I'm dismissing you, but there is a handful of options that could be behind this. And it could be nefarious, but it might not be. It might be nefarious, not directed at us, but at another portion of the regional command and the ships underneath it. But keep an eye out.
Understood. I'm just saying, though, with the way the political winds are blowing in this sector, we need to keep our eyes open.
Of course, but we are big damn heroes. So they're going to have to come at us with a lot more than a bad training scenario result to tarnish the medals we earned here recently.
Yes, sir.
Any thoughts, Lieutenant? How was it interacting with holographic characters that you couldn't sense?
Of course, I feel like I didn't have my full abilities while in that scenario, but I do feel like I picked up, to some extent, some of the ways that he was interacting, or some of the ways he was presenting the situation. And I do feel like he spent quite a lot of his time, and I'm sure you picked up on this as well, talking about independence and how this station can provide for themselves and how they can be independent. So I do think that there's something there, but I do feel like I'm not quite as capable as I am out here.
Fair enough. And Mr. Chazilrer, I'm sorry I cut you off, but please.
Did anyone else find the phrase education and bringing things around to hit their way of view a little disturbing? There are records of conditioning being done by Cardassian and Romulan agents, and even the Vulcans have been reported to occasionally possess the powers of persuasion. Is it possible that the concern here would be, to be honest, if Cassian is looking to separate their outpost from the Federation and their people are behind it, then we shouldn't try to stop them. That is a larger conversation. But if they are somehow indoctrinating people into this belief, that's another story.
Lieutenant Alana will speak up and say, yes, I got that feeling as well. I also got a bread and circuses vibe about his spectacle comment.
Indeed, I picked that up as well, which is why I challenged him to give me your version of it and see if you convince me you're not a dictator. No, I think we got a good sense of where we are. Let's go.
Excellent. So yeah, you head into the conference room. The video terminal pipes up. Yeoman Barat is there. So, fantastic. I see you have completed the first chapter. What have you learned? Share with me your observations.
Yeah, so I'll go down kind of the list. I'm like, the cultural analysis and the architectural features shows possible malignant narcissism and sociopathic tendencies. He's, as you have said, extraordinarily charismatic. The advisors that were in population included literally opposing individuals, including an active duty Bajoran military officer and a Cardassian Gull of some sort. So that's demonstrating his ability to bring those of different backgrounds and different philosophies together. The protestation of everyone is in agreement with him, but then the report from his second in command that there are protests that he waved off shows either attempting to hide or cover up an opposition movement, which is generally frowned upon by the Federation that values healthy internal political debate and discussions. He just gave me this Gul Dukat vibe. It was gross. I know there are individuals out there like that, but this is like all of them combined.
I see. Lieutenant Narila, how did Cassian make you feel?
I paused, somewhat unexpecting that question. Does it feel like his questions, if sometimes empaths can be sensitive, like if they have ESP active, they can be sensitive? Does it seem like he's asking that or asking like what I picked up?
I think that he is Vulcan and asked a very specific question to you. And that unless you want to roll for it, that's what you've got.
I do want to roll
It
for
does
it.
definitely see that. This is like he asked you for sure.
It's a surprising question, and it takes me off guard a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to roll probably insight and command to set your difficulty.
Okay.
So that'll be a difficulty of 2.
All right. And would I also be doing an insight command?
If that's what you feel is most appropriate, if there's something else, you can plead your case.
I think that's probably right. And I would also like to use the momentum.
Okay.
I really don't want to. I want to answer appropriately, but not like we have our guards up a little bit. I don't want to be giving information that.
Yep.
Anyway. Okay. 2 successes.
Rock on. Okay, cool. And so your specific question is, do you feel like he is asking that question from an ESP point of view or a you as a person point of view?
Is he trying to get from me what did I pick up from him, like my intuition about him, or is there something more? Is he trying to get...
He asked the Betazoid specifically. He specifically targeted the Betazoid with that question.
Right.
Yeah, you definitely felt like he was... so how much of the waffle that Lacey went through just there was Narila going through when she was asked? Like, how close to the vest do you think that was?
I think
was Narila thrown off by it?
I think it was both.
Okay.
I think Narila was definitely thrown off by this. Maybe it wasn't as extreme of a reaction as I had while I was trying to wheels were turning.
Yep. All right. So he asked the question, how did Cassian make you feel? And then as Narila sat there thinking about it, he did one of these.
Damn it. Okay.
So he definitely seems like
I'm being tested.
Yes, you're being tested.
So aside from me seeking out how Cassian felt or was interacting or his cues, I didn't feel anything abnormal besides that.
Yeah, he's a hologram, so like you certainly didn't trigger like your empathetic reactions or your ESP or anything like that. But that bit that we were talking about, like when you were like trying to go ahead and see his motivations, like, yep, you definitely felt that.
Yeah, so I will relay that. I did feel that he was very focused on the pride he has for his community and how they're independent and can survive with no outside help, and that also that he was surprised to have visitors. And that's how I'll answer.
Yep. Okay. Did you respect him?
I did not find that I would have felt like he was an adequate leader, but yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Commander Ocean, did you trust him?
Too early to say. There was discussion of educating people that needed to come around to their way of thinking. Those words could be interpreted in a very dark light. He's also seemingly rejecting counsel from people that are telling him what the people are asking for. So, is it fair to ask you to reframe the question, do I trust him to do what?
That is a very interesting observation, Commander Ocean. Thank you. Captain Tobor, how did you approach Cassian? What was your approach?
Like any diplomatic scenario, I started with building a generalized rapport with the individual. In this scenario, he invited us to dine with him, so we did so. We engaged in conversation in order to, again, probe his initial diplomatic style and negotiating posture, as well as to get a sense of who the man himself was and build a rapport on my side with him as well.
Did you try to manipulate or align with him?
No, it was too early in the process of diplomatic negotiations to lean one way or the other.
Antenna visibly twitch at the yeoman's question.
I like it. Fantastic. Do you think that your approach was the correct one?
Obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't have used that approach. But if you're asking me from a technical standpoint, Starfleet diplomatic training regulations do state that whenever possible, it is advisable and advantageous to build a friendly rapport with an individual in which you are about to engage in diplomatic exchange with, when possible.
Lieutenant Tonari, I am going to give you some pairs of words. I would like you to reply with which one you think best fits Cassian. Do you understand the question?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. First one. Do you think that he was charismatic or manipulative?
Both.
Do you think that he is passionate or reckless?
Both.
Lieutenant, could I ask you please to give me one?
I would say passionate.
Do you think that he is principled or stubborn?
Principled.
Do you think that he is compassionate or calculating?
Calculating.
Do you think that he is visionary or delusional?
I think visionary most closely describes him.
Do you think that he is idealist or opportunist?
Opportunist.
Do you think he is honorable or dangerous?
Dangerous.
Do you think he is revolutionary or criminal?
Since I have to choose one, I would say criminal.
Do you think he is genuine or performative?
Performative.
Do you think he is noble or naive?
Again, since I have to choose one, I would say noble.
Thank you, Tonari.
A yeoman.
Sorry.
I assume that those who are evaluating the test prefer us to give an honest answer.
Of course.
Then let it be said on the record, I believe that this is a waste of time.
Explain.
We have tasks we need to complete. I have a list of things personally that I need to do that is growing longer. And we have a threat that is looming on the horizon. And this is quite simply taking away from that. There is enough in our records for the command to make their decisions about us without having to go through this.
Your observations are noted, Lieutenant. Thank you. That's all the questions that I have for you. Based on your previous interaction, it looks like the next thing that you would like to do is to speak with his second in command, correct? And in a isolated area away from the colony.
That is correct. I had proposed a tour of the ship, so I do not see why that would, unless there's a specific reason the scenario would choose to not allow the second in command off planet, that would be my preference. So I can ensure that I am entirely in control of the environmental communication system.
That fits within the parameters of the exercise. That's fine. Note that the character is Betazoid. However, as a hologram, she does not actually have telepathic abilities. Narila, I believe that this puts you at the same disadvantage as she would have. So her conversation engine has been fed with some limited information about the four of you to help simulate that effect. That information will be limited to your build of this training mission. However, the information about your personalities that we have given her will not be disseminated, obviously. It's isolated to your version.
I shall keep a watch out for how the simulation interacts, and I'll provide any feedback to you, Yeoman, that may help you enhance the simulation for further testing.
That would be fabulous. Thank you.
And similarly to note, I am too at a diplomatic disadvantage because my Chief Science Officer cannot provide me insight. Is it possible we could do a pause in the simulation where Lieutenant Nilan would normally have been able to sense the emotions and ask the computer what is the emotional state of the character at this time? As close to artificial telepathy as possible. Empathy in the case of Lieutenant Nilan.
I will try to program such a thing. We had not accommodated for that.
Because I have found having an empath or telepath involved in diplomatic negotiations, while it can make the subject more guarded and cautious, also tends to provide us with a significant advantage, as has been noted on numerous occasions by Admiral Picard's commendation of his Betazoid counselor.
He rolled well enough to do that. Rila, you'll still be able to make those challenges basically by engaging the computer. Are there any further questions for Yeoman Barat?
I think we're good.
Okay. This section should not take long, so I will see you when you are completed. Head to the holodeck. All right, when you last programmed the emitters, you didn't spend any threat. You won outright, if I remember correctly, correct?
Correct.
Yep, fabulous. No need to test again. The emitters are warmed up and operating within normal parameters. As you step in, you are stepping into the conference room on the Dilamus Christian. And Lisa, the second in command that you met on the surface, is in the conference room and seated. When you walk in, she stands up. Captain, lieutenants, commander, doctor.
Miss Renor, is it assistant governor, deputy governor? Apologies, it was not in the diplomatic briefing.
Technically, Cassian has given me the title of tribune.
Another Roman reference. Wonderful.
What was her expression when she said that?
That's a fantastic question. She definitely made one. Would you like to roll to try to determine what it was?
Oh, yes, but the way you said it was odd. Insight and... She's not my subordinate.
This would only be like a one difficulty challenge. She was not particularly good at hiding her emotions on this.
Yep, Insight Command looks...
Yep.
I did get a success.
Fantastic. She definitely has feelings about the fact that he's so on brand. There wasn't a sense of disloyalty in the way she said it, but you get the feeling that there's something more to the structure in general. Maybe not specifically the fact that they're calling on Roman structure, but certainly to the structure in general. There's definitely something to it that makes her uneasy. Captain, I appreciate you taking a moment to speak with me.
Please have a seat.
Yeah.
We all file in.
I'm not sure how long I'll be here before I am missed, so hopefully we can keep our conversation fairly brief. But I want to be very clear that I'm definitely loyal to Cassian. Cassian has done tremendous things for our colony and for our planet. The standard of life now that we have, obviously, since the Dominion War, has improved in general, of course, but the things that he's been able to do to our colony in a relatively short period of time has been nothing short of astounding. And I want to be very upfront about that before we go any further.
Of course, no. And no one can doubt the effectiveness and results that he has achieved in these many short years. It's some concerns on the how it's been achieved has been percolating amongst senior officials elsewhere in the Federation. All cards on the table, Tribune.
Certainly. I am intrigued that word of such things has already reached beyond Calliope, which means that
he has been ignoring several Federation protocols, and while they still are within the bounds of the Federation Charter and the associated laws, most are wondering about the spirit.
Yes. The man I trusted would have stood with the Federation for the betterment of everyone. The man of Cassian now, I fear, would burn the stars to make them his own. I am concerned. Understand that Cassian and I share some philosophies in that my sense of duty to the colony as a whole and to Calliope and to the mission that is Calliope is always forefront in my head and always forefront in my heart. So yes, I am somewhat concerned about Cassian.
And it seems like you still adhere to the core philosophy that Calliope is better off as a Federation world. And Cassian may not share that same core philosophy, that he may be able to do better without us, lack of a better term.
I think that you are keying in on my concern. I have read documents that I do not believe that even I, as one of his most trusted advisors, was supposed to read, including a draft of his proclamation, as he is calling it, where he plans on declaring independence from the Federation.
Ah, and that is what I was afraid of from the brief discussion we had. May I ask some background information? Where do you believe this independent streak is coming from? Is it internal to Cassian, or does he have? I noticed a Cardassian individual in his presence when we met earlier. Are there external, or let me rephrase, are you concerned that there are external political proxies at work trying to carve Calliope off the Federation so that it becomes a weaker target?
So there are several questions in there. For one, the Cardassian that you speak with, that's Call Redek. That is our chief of security. He trusts nobody. He is a former Cardassian military. He's a good person. I just think that perhaps the best part of him was left at the war. But he is also fiercely loyal to Cassian. I do not believe that he is manipulating Cassian in any way. I don't think that Cassian could be manipulated in that way. I think that Cassian believes himself as the only person that can lead Calliope to any sense of prosperity, and that the only way to do that is for Calliope to only worry about itself and to secede fully.
Yes. I have found in my 300 and some odd years of being alive that it is very easy for the young to forget about the umbrella of safety and security that the existence of the Federation provides, and think that they are not standing on the shoulders of the giants who came before them.
Yeah. I had not noticed until now that you are Trill.
Yes, I am.
What is that like?
How much time do you have? I've lived 8 lifetimes, and I have memories of all of them that are my own, but they are not. For lack of better terms, I'm a creature of duality. And that is the kind of blessing and the curse of my people, or those who choose to be joined. Let me be clear, not all of my species do even want to be joined. Some find the thought of having who they are, their entire identity, essentially reset like a computer program and then rewritten with an entirely new operating system, to be a existentially terrifying thought.
There's an unjoined Trill that lives in Calliope, actually. Her name is Amari Voss. She's a doctor. She's one of the chief medical officers in the colony. Rila, when you want to go ahead and try to connect with her empathetically using the protocols that Tobor set up with Barak, let me know.
Oh, I absolutely want to do that.
Okay. All right. As I said, so every hint is a threat, right?
So now, if I may get back to a bit of business.
Sorry, hold on 1 second. Before you do that,
Josh, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
At least from a mechanical standpoint, it wasn't really to tap into the ESP. It was to try and replicate her normal empathy. So it'd just be like computer empathetic read on character, and like the program would freeze and it'd be like, the character is feeling threatened.
I guess that's the question. So what is the normal mechanic? Is empathy just automatically, do you just automatically get it?
So empathy is I can sense the emotions of most living beings nearby and can communicate telepathically with other empaths and telepaths. And with those, I'm extremely familiar.
Yep.
However,
Yeah.
If you wanted to include the ESP to give those hints, I think that's like up to you on whether into ESP
Yep.
that it's your call on whether you want to
Okay.
offer that.
Fair enough then. So here's what I will do then. I will give you the option because you have to engage with the computer now to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to require either a 1 difficulty roll or you can buy with threat and get it for free. Because it's not your normal mechanic. So this is a weird way to go ahead and try to do this for you. It's you know enough to do it, and it's so that's why it's not particularly difficult, but it's your choice.
Let's do a roll.
I like it.
I've been mostly doing Insight Command for these.
I can give you insight command on that. That's fine.
My first roll was an 18. My second roll was an 8.
I like it. Okay, so at least you succeeded. You get the feeling that she is conflicted by even having this conversation in the first place because on some level she is loyal to Cassian and this feels some sense of betrayal. However, it's her sense of duty that is driving her to have this conversation in the first place. She thinks that what he's talking about doing could be potentially dangerous and reckless. So she does not think that it's the right thing to do, even though she is loyal to him. She's definitely conflicted.
I can respect that. I appreciate these loyalty to people versus loyalty and doing the right thing in the situation.
Would you like to telepathically communicate with her through the computer? Would you like her to know a thought?
Know a thought?
Yeah, because she's Betazoid also.
Right.
So there's the computer's asking you basically if you would like to convey a thought to her.
So first, Norella thinks this is very strange.
It's weird.
Trying to use the computer to replicate what happens naturally. It feels very clunky and weird.
Very, very clunky and weird. Yeah, totally. Yep.
But I think maybe she would communicate something like, it's okay, we're safe. This like feeling a safety message.
Okay. Carry on, Tober.
Now, Miss Renora, I understand your loyalty to Cassian is obvious. It's written all over your face. But your loyalty to Calliope as well is without a doubt. And unfortunately, you're caught in an unfortunate situation where the governmental structure he's set up has not led you with an official recourse to voice your disagreement, which is why, generally in Federation, we tend to avoid unipolar political structures. So I am extraordinarily sensitive to your position, and I'm willing to do whatever I can to protect you as having provided me with any of this insight or information. I was already far along the way to coming to this opinion on my own, and your words have just confirmed my initial thoughts of the governor. So I want you to know that we are ultimately, any Federation member world or colony world has the right to self-determination and can choose to leave the Federation if they so desire. We would want to require a plebiscite of and vote of the population rather than just the singular titular political head declaring it so. But I can see from the esteem in which your people hold Cassian in that if he were to make the proclamation that we will hold a grand vote to withdraw from the Federation and go on by ourselves, that it would likely carry the majority. You have known him far longer than I have. So whatever you can provide to me to help me convince him of the value of Federation membership. We have no desire to see Calliope not grow. In fact, there are many in the Federation that are duly impressed with what you all have accomplished here in such a short time frame. And we would like to learn from your successes and see how they can be replicated elsewhere in the Federation, while also avoiding the pitfall of dictatorship and all of the negatives that come from a unipolar governmental system.
I am not sure that anybody could convince Cassian that a vote was even necessary or the right way to proceed. That's
under the Federation Charter, and if it comes to that, that'll be a tactic of approach.
I don't think that he would view the Federation Charter as an obstacle to doing what he wants to do.
Fair enough. I appreciate the insight.
Alana will actually speak up, sir, if I may.
By all means, you're my chief of security.
You spoke earlier about some protests. Could you elaborate on that some?
What would you like to know?
What is the nature of their protests? What exactly were they protesting? Perhaps how organized are they? And to be quite honest, is Cassian and Reddick putting them down, and how violently are they?
Violence is next to unknown throughout Calliope, and she hesitates a little bit as she says that, which does not necessarily mean, if I understand the question or the answers that we're discussing here, I suppose it's entirely possible that it's just not known. But my understanding, and I would think that I would know if it was happening, is that they are not quelling the protests violently. Cassian firmly believes that once people understand what it is that he's trying to do, that they will come to his point of view. And he has been working with the chief medical officers and the other trusted advisors on the planet to aid in that education. I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but I can tell you that so far, quelling dissent with this sort of re-education has been effective.
I kind of
And
like
what
medical.
what exactly were they protesting in the first place?
Nothing significant, honestly, at the end of the day. Like, that's why I'm not sure why it became such an issue, but Cassian seemed to take any signs of dissent from his plan as an issue. He seemed really bothered by it. And
But what sort of things were they protesting?
things like how he has pushed down any sort of parliamentary practice and consolidated so much power in his own office, and how being a voice in his administration is very easy if you are a friend of his, but if you are not a friend of his, forget it. There's some speculation that a lot of the advisors that are given any degree of control or autonomy within his administration are solely there because either he owes them a favor or because he just knows that they're going to be mouthpieces for whatever he wants to do. I think in general, the protests are basically about the consolidation of power. When people see it and they start protesting for more representation is when he reacts.
That is consistent with his style of governing.
He thinks he knows what's best, and he thinks that he is the only one that knows what's best.
And this re-education project works an overwhelming amount of the time?
A consistently predictable amount of time.
Ballpark, what kind of percentage?
As close to 100% as you could possibly imagine.
Mr. Tenari, I would like you and Dr. New to investigate their methodologies. I'm concerned that their chief medical officer is involved in a re-educational process. And to me, it immediately implies some sort of pharmacological assistance that is not necessarily of the most benign nature. Apologies, Mr. Nor, if I am impugning the honor of your friend, but if there's any evidence of coercion, that would be something that we would need to know.
Captain, I think that we're already talking about one revolution and perhaps speaking of a second.
Yes, sir, but we would need some kind of example of what they have for us to be able to examine it, or a person who's gone through it.
I'm sure we can find both, but probably start with talking doctor to doctor, turn to Dr. New, with Dr. Voss and get a sense of how comfortable, uncomfortable they are with being involved in some sort of educational program with political dissidents. I know most Federation doctors would be squeamish about the ethical questions that are raised in such a endeavor.
You see Lisa kind of freeze a little bit, and you hear
Incoming transmission.
and the communications officer says Barak is trying to get in touch with you.
Since we're in the fake conference room,
Exactly right. Yeah,
let's have a patch him through to the fake screen and the fake conference room on the holodeck.
Captain, I have been monitoring your progress through this chapter. Would you like to speak to the doctor?
Their Dr. Voss or my Dr. New?
They're Dr. Voss.
I intend to collect some sort of evidence of unethical or illegal behavior before accusing the governor of anything untowards. So I would send my team to speak to individuals involved in that re-educational process.
Yep. Not from Barat, but from Josh. Basically, what he's able to provide you, he'll send it to your pad, is a log from Dr. Voss talking about someone that had come into one of their clinics that she was investigating that definitely seemed to be under some sort of long-acting pharmaceutical hallucinogenic. And she knew him previously as someone who had been critical of Cassian in particular, and again about like the consolidation of power up at the top, and that he'd gone from revolutionary to Stepford person kind of thing, and that she did find use of some sort of pharmaceutical hallucinogenic that had seemed to have modified his personality. The big keying thing is that he started speaking in like the same sort of flowery pro-republic oratory that you heard from Cassian in a lot of his speeches, like even so much as like quoting some of his speeches verbatim sort of thing. So it's like they like downloaded a bunch of information into him and that was what he was speaking. Yeah.
And so I'll read that and I'm like, thank you. Just since you're already here, I don't know how much more we can get from the Renora character, but what she has told me and the declaration of Cassian's plan to declare independence, plus this evidence, at this point in a standard mission, I would contact Starfleet Command.
Fair.
To report that we have found this evidence.
Let us continue then to the post-chapter debrief. He'll look around. Wait, are we actually in the conference room or are we still on the holodeck?
Oh, we're still on the holodeck.
Is this secure enough for us to have this conversation?
I believe so. It's coming through ship systems.
Fantastic. He would again ask you to go ahead and relay what you learned. Do you hold back any information that you learned from the previous character?
I don't think so. No, he's watching the chat logs, literally.
Fair enough.
We're generating them.
Yep. Okay. Commander Ocean, I would like to start with you. You didn't say much to Lisa. Did you have any questions for her that are left unresolved in your mind?
No. The piece of information that I would have wanted to probe at was revealed. The fact that the re-education was forced, which would remove this from a scenario where a colony is seeking to legally secede from the Federation and to a scenario where crime is being committed against
Indeed.
Federation citizens.
We will get to that in a moment. How do you think Lisa benefits if Cassian is removed from power?
I'm sorry, Yeoman, was that a question for the commander?
That's a question for Commander Ocean.
Ah, very good.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about it for a moment. Again, it's too early to tell. We don't know enough about the remaining government to know who would side with Lissa or whether or not this would turn into a civil war.
And he'll scribble on his pad.
If I may, Yeoman, I absolutely noticed this question scenario. She is the most likely second in command to succeed Cassian as governor. She has a lot to gain by having him removed. All of the information that she shared with me is being filtered through a lens of skepticism about the enormous political progression she would have, and I'm weighing that against her sense of duty to her people And again, this would be where if my Betazoid officers had the full use of their empathy and telepathy, I would really, though she too is a Beta Z and would likely have the ability to either resist or hide any kind of deceit or duplicity. Hopefully, Chapter 3 shall be about investigating the potential crimes because I must validate the veracity of her information. And again, my report to Starfleet would all be couched in allegations from the individual who is single best positioned to gain politically from the governor's downfall, which of course does not mean he is not committing these crimes, or she may even be his accomplice.
Yes. Lieutenant Narila, did you feel any sympathy for Lisa?
I did not necessarily feel sympathy, but I did notice or was able to detect through these conflicted feelings through the programming. I think that it's very unnatural the way that happened. I don't know if it was a good representation of how I detect or how the connections are for me. But I would say that I didn't necessarily feel sympathy for her.
Do you think that was merely a matter of the fact that this was a simulation, or have you grown unnecessarily callous?
Yeoman. That is begging the question, and I would expect better from a Vulcan to make such an accusation of a superior officer. Would you care to rephrase that in a less accusatory manner? There are many ways in which individuals do not connect sympathetically with other living beings than sheer callousness.
Thank you, Captain Tobor. Commander Tanari, did you think that Lisa was sincere?
On first blush, yes.
Why?
Instinct,
Do you often make critical decisions on instinct?
yes.
How successful are you with that methodology?
Generally pretty successful.
More successful than I would like him to be.
That's Josh laughing. Excellent. I think those are my questions for right now. I appreciate your feedback. Captain Tobor, you have fed your information to Starfleet Intelligence. They have taken some time to compile it and reply back. They feel that the accusations are legitimate that you are forwarding, and after reviewing your intelligence and compiling it with some other intelligence, they are recommending that Cassian be taken into custody. The next chapter will be the day of the lantern procession.
So, Yeoman, I will require the entirety of Starfleet Intelligence's evidence that makes them think this, and then for the purposes of this scenario, is there a Starfleet Judge Advocate General's warrant for his arrest? Or is this Starfleet Intelligence?
Tobor, do you understand that Cassian isn't a real person?
Yes, but you're testing my and my crew's ability and performance, and I will not arrest anyone without a warrant for their arrest.
Then assume that the structure of command has handed a warrant from the Judge Advocate General to you.
Outstanding.
Would you like any break between now and when the next chapter begins?
I'm a little peckish. I think I'm going to grab something to eat and then we can reconvene.
That sounds satisfactory to me.
Dilamus Christian out.
Barat out.